Well, welcome to a new Harry's Farm video, and I think it's about just over 2 weeks since I did the last report, and since then the weather has been just amazing for growing things. Sunshine, constant sunshine, and then last weekend we had about 20 mil of very welcome rain, because actually the last 6 weeks we've hardly had any rain, so it was really welcome, and it continues on. Well, today is the 23rd of April, I think, and my job basically this week was this field was one of those fields that didn't go into wheat, but I want to grow a crop on it just to keep the earthworms happy, just to keep the sort of the microbes alive and kicking, and it's a good thing to do for your soil health. The reason this field didn't actually get drilled, because it's like plasticine, this field. It's a really heavy clay. So I was putting in a mix of mustard, which is a bit like oilseed rape. It has a tap root, and it's very vigorous growing, and it basically sucks a lot of moisture out of the ground. And I had hoped to be doing it with this. So this is the rig. You've seen the carrier cultivator drill before. And then on the front here, I have this broadcaster, and the seeds only go, we don't put it on like we do a wheat sort of mix. We just broadcast it on the top. I just get there's some seeds. That's the sort of seeds you're dealing with, a bit like that. And you're putting on about, I think it's 15 kilos a hectare, so not a huge amount. So you can just broadcast it. This is a spinning disc here. I can control the speed in the cab. That spins it out. Cultivator behind that buries the seed, and everything's good. And then you wait, you roll it, and have a bit of rain on it, and it all grows away. That's the theory. And I had hoped to be doing it, but I've gone slightly grumpy farm, getting teased by the family because it's actually too hot. This soil, if I just dig you a piece of soil up. I put that down there. Oh. This, even though we've had all this really dry weather, it's like plasticine, and it's not really in a workable condition. And if I disc it up and bring it all up to the surface, it will dry out in an hour or two in this sunshine. I'm not going to be quick enough to get the seed into it to make use of the moisture. So I'm now waiting for a little bit of rain in the forecast, so I can get it all done just before the rain and everything's good. But there is another complication because of the single farm payment. There's this area payment, always a controversial subject with farming. Press love to get hold of it, and it's been in my lifetime always part of farming. I started straight from college at early 80s as a grain buyer, and back then the farm subsidy was supported farmers by putting a guarantee on the price of wheat or barley, and used to buy for something called intervention, which was the government stores. It was EU stores, and so that was how it used to work in those days. And then it got more complicated because it depends what crops you're growing, and they're giving support for different crops depending on the area you'd put in the ground. And today they said, oh, that's too complicated, and today it's an area payment just based on area farmed. And everybody's getting upset because obviously it rewards the bigger landowners rather than small landowners. It's just been a part of farming, as I say. I can't really farm without it. It props up, makes the farm profitable in the good years, but it's not even actually enough to support the farm when we have a bad year. 2017 was a horrendous year on this farm. Subsidy or not, way in the red. 2018 made some of it up. Last year we actually made a profit for the first time in quite a number of years. This year I don't think we will. Farming has always been on this knife edge, and part of the latest set of rules, you have to have a 3 cropping rule, and I can't do the 3 crops with the grain stores I explained before, and so one of my crops is fallow, and that means leaving the ground rested for a year, and then you grow something next year. And so this is a fallow field, and I was going to put this green crop in, but now I've looked at the rules to comply with their greening rules, so I'm still eligible for this payment, and I've got to get this done by the 1st of May, and then I can't touch it at all until the 30th of June. So whatever happens, I've got to get that crop in by then, whatever the sunshine's doing. If it's pouring of rain, I'll still be out here. It's this bizarre way that Brussels sort of rules farming. Now, before we went into lockdown, there was a lot of discussion of how this area payment was, or single farm payment, was going to survive Brexit. And there is a proposal on the table at the moment to drastically reduce it, especially for the bigger landowners. We're in the Farmers Weekly, a proposed reduction for 2021 of 25% for those receiving over £150,000 from the payment. So divide that figure by 88, and that's how many acres it is. It's over 2,000 acres, isn't it? It's a very controversial area, always has been. As I say, it was introduced just after the 1947 agricultural bill to guarantee food supply in the UK. It was encouraging farmers to grow crops and provide food for the population, so they weren't so reliant on importing food. You do wonder, with this coronavirus coming on, and how we're going to adjust when we do eventually come out of lockdown, of whether the UK grower farmers are going to be encouraged to make sure that they can supply the UK with food from now on. At the moment, the proposal that's on the table is very much about soil health, cover crops, pollen and nectar mixes, and not actually about food production. I would suggest the focus should be on food production. It should have been before the coronavirus, and it most definitely should be afterwards, because I think that's what was the best way we can serve the public. But there you go. So it's an area I'll touch on again. We've got to fill the forms in a couple of weeks. When they have to be in by the 15th of May, so I'll go into more detail then. So these are the two crops we've got. We've got this mustard going in. So this is a mustard mix for this fallow, basically to suck out the moisture. And I've got this 1 year winter bird food survival mixture. Here we are, kind of millet, all sorts of things. That's actually just going in a 2 hectare block round there. I do that part of the countryside stewardship scheme. It's a 10-year scheme, and I always put down, there's about 10 hectares around the farm of these separate mixes. I just find it interesting and fascinating growing these different crops. I've just got to spray out some thistles that have come through. We're going to go through, take those out, and then I'll be the same machine as this, cultivating it out. So there you go. That's what's happening, or should be happening on the farm right now. But I've got to wait for things to cool down. So I'm going to jump on the bike cam again and just give you a bit of a tour around. I'm hoping the quality is going to be better now, because I've got a new camera set up and I've swapped bikes. I actually got onto this Cagiva Elefant. This is a 900 IE. This is one of my proudest possessions of all the collection of Dakar bikes, because this is a bike that won in 1990 the Paris-Dakar. And Cagiva are so pleased they produced a very limited run of customer bikes to replicate the race bike. And this is one of them, and they're beyond hen's teeth in the UK, and it's actually a really friendly bike. I spent my 60th, I wanted to do a Dakar stage out in Sahara, so I actually took this out in the Sahara sands. But anyway, we're going to jump on that and go and have a look at some of the grass and the linseed elsewhere on the farm. I always think it's a fantastic time of year, this, when everything just starts growing. The wheat is sort of going that nice sort of dark green colour, the trees are just getting into leaf, and this grassland's all coming up as well. The wheat has had a bit of fertiliser on. I'll just go around here, just go over here. Whee! So I want to take you down this valley. You can see how it grows very differently. Down here is quite lush. It's all the alluvial soil that's sort of been washed down. The brook just runs along there. And then the higher ground isn't as fertile, doesn't have as good a structure to it. But down here, the grass is well away. You see there's buttercups coming, obviously there's dandelions. I mean, it's mainly dandelions, but there are buttercups. There's yellow rattle I saw coming up in another field. I did actually find a wild primrose earlier. I'm blowed if I can find it again, but yeah, as I say, none of this grassland's had anything on it in decades. So this is all just naturally regrowth. What I can't get over is down here, this is where it was all flooded. But being this meadow grass, it hardly notices, it's just, look how green it is now. But yeah, I just want to take you up this hill here. have to take a bit of a run up here because it's almost vertical, this last bit. Plenty of air, but yeah, this is particularly yellow in here. But this, funny enough, you see all these shots of wildflowers, and quite often it looks rubbish from majority of the year, and then there's a moment when it all comes together and it looks great. And this is another one. This is pollen nectar mix out there. There's clovers out there, and there's borage out there, and that'll look an absolute picture in a few weeks' time. But at the moment, it looks bloody awful. This looks like scrub, really. Unlike this field. Look at it. But this will all be gone in about a week's time. As you know, this will all be disappear and go into grass. Right, what I want to do now is just show you the linseed over in there. Into the linseed, you can see that little strip next door to the organic grass, so we have this division between conventionally farmed linseed and the grass. Yeah, storming away, and it's definitely in stem extension. It's reaching the scars. It's not quite in bud. Let's have a little look what we've got up here. Yeah, looks nice and clean. Turn that off. But yeah, you can see it's all coming up, and there will be buds appearing here in a few weeks' time. Well, not very long to go at all. Is that one appearing? And then it will just be this wonderful sort of lilac colour right throughout here. So yeah, pretty chuffed with this. Really, it's survived all the horrible weather. We've been in here with a herbicide and then another herbicide just to take the grass weeds out. But what I want to show you down here is we've been doing a bit of stone walling, which is just down here. It's always a bit of feels like a riding test when you're going down the tram lines. It's like here, so I go down that one. It's like a balancing act. I've got 200 kilos of bike that really doesn't like doing 90-degree turns in a crop. And then you've got a few ruts. Where's he going? Here we go. Where's the field? In there. I guess it's good practice. I really want to be on a trial bike rather than on this. In fact, I think this looks even better in here, the linseed in here. But it's just hitting my foot. You can just see, that tells you how high it is. It's a good gauge. That's why I use the bikes. It just means you can go up and down these tram lines without damaging the crops, and you really get to see the crop better. You can obviously walk it as well, but that wouldn't be nearly as much fun. Right, here we have a section of new wall. So this section of stone wall we've got here, there was a tree the other side of this, and trees and stone walls don't work together. The trouble with a tree is it puts out roots, it gets bigger over time, and it pushes a dry stone over. And here, it also in the wind, if it's got westerlies normally wind this direction, the wind's swaying the tree, again the stone wall can't cope and it just falls down. And this had fallen down, and it's such a lovely spot just along the bridle path. I really wanted to fix it, but unfortunately the tree had to go, and I couldn't show you in progress, unfortunately, this wall being built up. But when we took it down, there was these enormous roots. There was just no way you could build a wall around it or anything. So the tree came out, and then my guy does this stone walling, which I just think is a wonderful art, and it's one of my favourite things on the farm with the stone walls. There's unfortunately quite a lot of kilometres of them, but I feel it's our duty to preserve these walls, even though they're more decorative than anything else these days. They were put in its enclosure at 18th century, meant that you enclosed so you could graze your sheep. This is what this area was known for. And they're like a pyramid. They're not dead straight up. They're like a pyramid shape like that. They're wider at the bottom. You have facing stones here, as if I know what I'm doing, but you have facing stones this side and the other side, and then there's middles, infill in the middle, and then you put on the top these toppers, and these are quite tightly in, and that all binds it all in. The trick when you have a wall falling down is how you stitch it in, and I think he's so good at this, Mark. But I think this is old wall here, and somewhere here he's stitched it in into the existing wall, and you can barely see the join. You've got to remember, a dry stone wall is exactly what it says. It has no cement, there's nothing binding this stone, they're just placed and they're just the right shape, and it is quite strong. It is firmer than you expect, and you can see there is nothing through it, and it's amazing that they stand for like 200 years. It does take a tree or some movement underneath. Rabbits is another problem when they start making burrows all around them. Badgers, the stone walls fall down then. And then you've got to remember, all this stone is just collected from the fields. It's not brought in. It's years and years of trying to grow crops here and things, and just chucking the stones aside and then making a wall from the stone you've got on the farm. In a few weeks' time, I'd like to do a bit more on the stone walls. You can see how they vary around the farm. Some places they're really fine stone, and then other ones they're chunkier. Just depends what sort of stone that field's got in it. The other thing I just want to show you is the wheat. Not many weeks ago, just over 2 weeks, when we were rolling this, and you certainly wouldn't roll this anymore. And this is what is now termed stem extension. If I take that main tiller there, take that off there, you can see how it's reaching up. That's all it wants to do, is grow up now. And if I just cut this off, I'll see if I can do this. There, you can just start to see the nodes appearing. There's a node there, another node there. And if the ear is already formed in there, that's the wheat ear just forming there. So you can see it's in stem extension. So again, we're out spraying the wheat this week. You put a growth regulator on so it doesn't get too tall, and we've put in a fungicide on. I think I explained that last time. So the wheat is storming up as well. So there you go, there's a bit of a roundup of what's happening on Harry's farm. Plenty to do. It's the time of year when there's more jobs than hours in the day. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and it gives you an idea of what's happening on the farms. If you have, well, keep watching, keep subscribing. There'll be more videos coming along very soon.